Yeah, my name is Mike Datka. I'm from St. Clare's. Been a member there ever since high school. I found as I got older, I enjoyed going to church more. And it wasn't until I actually got sick in those weakness times, I actually found how much more I love church. And then I had a little relapse there where I actually got better for a little while. And I found as I got better, then that's when I started finding I could do things myself then. I didn't need God so much. I didn't need church so much. And then that's when a friend actually invited me to do that dynamic men's group, the author of Men of Christ. But then he kept calling me. He called me every few days or texted me, kept in touch. And I started thinking, you know what, maybe it's something I would need. And I did the Men of Christ, and after that Men of Christ, only like 2 years ago, I said I will never miss another one. And then the next year comes along, and that's when St. Leonard's sends their guys out to our church, talking about the Men of Christ, getting guys to come. And I said, you know what, this is something we should have at our church. We started setting up a men's group at our church with St. Leonard's help. And we just, followed their lead. It was just real men not being afraid to share their faith. And that was probably the biggest turning point for me. How we all sharpen each other. And we're all supposed to hold each other accountable. And I could see they all would hold each other accountable. And they have each other's back. Even though I was an outsider starting up for another church, but they had my back too. And there's something more comforting in that. As you start faltering a little bit with your health or whatever, I wasn't worried. I know that St. Leonard's, St. Clare's, that the guys they'll help. So currently, my cancer returned again. I've been doing chemo off and on since 2012. I had a little bit of break in 2013. I had a little bit of break in 2019. We thought everything was better this last summer. And then in October, I was for another checkup that we thought would be kind of the same as usual for the last 2.5 years. Nothing's growing, there's no problem. So I went and had my scans done, and then it showed that I had a lot of spots popped up. The main one was about a plum-sized tumor right through my heart, through the left ventricle into the right ventricle on the bottom. Also had spots in my colon and my backbone, I think a rib, a couple spots in my lymph nodes and my neck. But the heart is the one they're really worried about. Through the Men of Christ, I've seen that how they've had miracles where they actually had the Eucharist actually turn to tissue, human tissue. It was a heart muscle. And I thought, I'm not really worried about my heart. Even though that's what the doctors are worried about. I figured that we always pray, thy will be done. If I give it totally to Jesus. The chemo, if the chemo works, the chemo will kill the tumor. But then there'll be no heart tissue left, and my heart will rupture. If we don't do chemo, the tumor will grow, and it'll stop my heart. So in November, they said, well, your best chance of survival is an artificial heart, where you put this mechanical heart in your chest, and you have to carry around a little backpack the rest of your life with these 1/2-inch tubes going into your chest. So we had a family meeting once then, and I asked my 2 little boys what they thought, and it broke my heart. When my boys, the one says, Daddy, God made your heart. Why would you ever throw that away? And my other boy said, you have enough man-made parts in you. And then I made my decision, that's right. I don't need that. We have the Eucharist, and if it's God's will, God will patch my heart. And I joined those prayers with the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and I wasn't worried about that no more. Then the men's group, they started praying for me, and I wasn't worried. God listens to the righteous man. And you got 50 men in a men's group. You got a lot of guys, and a few of those are bound to be righteous men, and more righteous than me. So there's lots of evidence in Scripture where people praying for each other works. In a men's group, it's such a good, grounded bunch of guys that I really want the kids to look up to guys like that and not these, actors or, pretend people that pretend to be somebody on TV. When you have real men, real life Catholics in your community, and those should be your role models. In our group here at St. Clare's, when I needed something at the shop done here real quick before I went back to the hospital, I had 5 guys stop by quick and give me a hand. Then I was just told in the hospital that my heart is not good. You're gonna need an artificial heart. And I was pretty down in the hospital by myself. And then that night, my wife brought my kids up to the hospital room. And all it was a card from a men's group, from our St. Leonard's men group. And that card had, all it was is signatures on it. I don't know, maybe 30, 40 men. I don't know. But that was right at the right time when I needed it. And the kids see my face, my eyes are starting to well up. And I told them that, Daddy, it's hot in here, my eyes are starting to sweat. And, but I needed that at that time. It can be hard to start a group and make that move. I do think you need help with another established group. God gives you these gifts, and then you should use them. It's an example that you provide your kids. You stop what you're doing, you go to your group, and then they realize, well, that's kind of normal. You stop what you're doing, and you give time back to God. If I could go back to one thing if I could have one gift, I would, at my younger age, in my 20s, I would have learned the answers to the questions that we're faced in everyday life. Just standing up for your faith when you're young and energetic. You can be more of a role model too. And I found that in men's groups. I'm very thankful that groups like St. Leonard's, they started these groups years ago. It impacts my life, it impacted my family life, makes me a better person, makes me a better father, a better husband. Jesus tells us to go out there, make disciples, and that's what your job is. And by going out there and starting a men's group, that's what you're doing. You're doing as Jesus commanded you to do. Go out there and make disciples.